things that I have prayed and just would give anything to see in 5 years, I've seen it now in 4 weeks. By day 2 of life, Luke started to go into a coma. The first 6 months of Luke's life were very traumatic, to say the least. He was in the hospital every week. We would get out for a couple days and be back. His pneumonia was just never really managed. For 6 months, he stayed at a brain damaging level. Every time I would see a doctor, they just pick one diagnosis to fixate on. So Luke has been given a diagnosis of CPS1, he's had a liver transplant, metabolic stroke, cerebral palsy from the stroke, and we also got an autism diagnosis. There were many nights that I would stay up crying, thinking, what can I do for him? Because I feel like everything I'm doing here is not working. Dr. Crawford takes us back, and he was looking over Luke, talking to him. He didn't treat Luke like any of his diagnosis, not one of them. He was looking at Luke to treat Luke what works best for him. This is a place of miracles. So before, I could never get Luke to like dress himself. And the other morning I had his clothes laid out for him, and I was in the bathroom getting ready, and I walked back into the bedroom and he had already gotten himself dressed. He was completely nonverbal from the stroke, so never said a word, but he has started to talk. I was like, you get to go to clinic today and see all your friends. And I was like, are you ready to go now? And he said, yeah. And now he's trying, like every night he's trying to sound out words. He actually sits at night and in bed and wants me to read to him. He's never done that before. He was not ever using utensils. And I've made videos of him since being here of eating his first cup of ice cream, like literally from Chick-fil-A, because he can do it now. I just have so much hope for Luke's future, and just seeing the things that he's done in 4 weeks. I can't imagine what it's going to look like for him when we get home and we're doing home care. Who knows, maybe a year from now I will be sending y'all T-ball pictures and whatever he wants to do.
You're doing awesome, dude.
This place is restoring health, restoring hope to families, and truly changing lives, not only of the patients, but of the families as well.
I'm Kirstin White. I am a speech assistant. My mom's a PT, so I grew up in this world my whole life. I like literally remember being like, why don't you know everybody in a wheelchair? To my mom, like that was like my thought process as a kid, so I feel like it's just always been. I grew up in New England, and then I worked for Tobii Dynavox now for 7.5 years.
Yes, and I'm Joe Jolly. I am much newer to Tobii Dynavox. I started this year in January and kind of took some of the load off Kirstin. I serve the adult market, 22 and over. My background is adult home health speech therapy, and Baylor grad. So I've been here in Texas for a while now.
Okay, communication. All the things to communicate. What is it? Everywhere we talk, say, think. I like this slide because AAC-wise, it's like facial, like I guarantee you know exactly mostly what your kid's communicating because you know the facial expressions, the body language, the gestures. Sometimes that like some writing depends on like where your kid's at and all of the different things, but I think people forget that it's all of it together. And then obviously high tech, which is what we're gonna kind of look at today. I love this Communication Bill of Rights because when schools like, well, they have a yes, no, that's fun, like that is not allowed on our speech language pathology license. So you have a right for more communication than sometimes, I think schools especially is like, well, like this works, and it's like, but they could say so much more.
And parents a lot of times don't know what you don't know. I mean, the schools are on the hook for so much more than a lot of people realize. And a lot of times the schools don't even know it themselves. And so to have a reference like this, if you would like a copy, reach out to one of us and we can send it to you.
This, and I also have a link to like what the national requirements are for AAC in a school system. Like if your kid has a device at school, and they say, oh, they can't take it home on the weekends, that's not legal. Like things like that that people don't even realize is really helpful to like learn and find out more. Here in Austin, like the Austin ISD has really done a great job like doing more on that. So sometimes she'll send me like, did you know? And I'm like, oh, that's a new fact I didn't know about. Okay, I feel like these are the ones as parents that you hear all the time, like AAC can prevent someone from speaking, which is not true. I think, I was telling a parent earlier, I had a guy who had a brain injury 40 years ago when he was in his 20s, and he got a device in his 60s. He has more language now, spoken language, than he did for the last 40 years, because it just helped connect some of those dots. Now, research is, it's never gonna decrease your language. It's either gonna keep it the same or increase it. So if like you physically can't talk, like it's not gonna make you, right? But it can aid in so much. And some people, Medikit earlier, he kind of uses it as a backup, like longer thoughts, he uses his device, single words he can answer pretty well, all of that stuff. Sometimes AAC isn't worth it because it won't help. I feel like y'all know the answer to that. You don't know until you try. I was talking to, oh my gosh, Luke's dad. Why did I just blank? Thank you. I was like, I've known Tim for so long. And we were talking like, if we tried it now, would it be different? Like just the things, cause like sometimes trying it right after an injury, you got a lot going on and all of that, but like, don't always give up on it after one try. I think sometimes going back to it or trying something different or a different language system or a different access method, all of that. And then AAC should be a last resort. No, it should always be like an extra to get you there. Like we give a kid a wheelchair to help them. We don't say like, you have to try and walk first and then we'll give you, like we don't do that stuff. So it's the same, like it's a bridge to get us where we wanna go. And it might be the end goal, right? But it might also not be the end goal. There's a kid over there earlier that eye gaze is probably where they're at right now at 2, but like you probably are gonna learn to touch that specific kid. It's probably gonna get to a point they can touch later. So you gotta get to where you wanna go though. Give the language as soon as you can. Okay, access methods, because I feel like quick things that y'all see. Obviously you can touch, but that takes fine motor and some of that stuff. You can put a key guard to help with some of that touch. Mouse and joystick alternatives. You can use a regular mouse like you would on your computer. You can use simple joysticks and different things like that. They have so many adaptive things. I know here in Texas we have like a loan pool that you can sign things out and you can try. I'm sure you probably have it in California as well. But sometimes that's really cool to see like what is the most functional. A head-controlled mouse, it's kind of a dot that goes right here and you kind of connect the with the device, it like matches up. It used to be used more when eye gaze wasn't quite what it is now for some of our more severe CVI kids. It's changed over the years because eye gaze has come so far. The cameras are so much better now. Scanning, sometimes that is our only option. But think about, okay, I have to remember, I have to go this, I have to, the cognitive load and then get my body to do what I want it to do. So it's a lot all at once. So it's not always the most functional, but sometimes it's our option. So like what's the easiest route to start? And then eye tracking, most kids, most people can, it's the easiest. It's technically what we call direct select. Because I look at it, it makes a selection. There's nothing I have to hit other than that to use it. It's kind of like when you touch a button, just touching your button with the eye.
And a lot of times a combination of these can also be used. So if we like some scanning, some eye tracking, yeah.
Touch also to look at. Sometimes we have a kid that drags their finger across and has a hard time with that. We can put on different things like touch exit. So like I can drag my finger across the whole thing and when I lift my finger off, it actually makes the selection. And it highlights colors and different things to help with that visual aspect as well. These are just things to play with. Scanning, like I said, you gotta figure out what access point. Is it my knee, is it my elbow, is it my head? You'll see some people do like the 2 switches here. 2 switches is definitely more in control for that kid than 1 switch because 1 can get me like across the page and 1 can actually select. But that's a lot, so that's kind of more individualized, but I just wanted y'all to know it was an option. Eye tracking, it is 2 cameras at the base of the device.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry, right here. It's a near infrared reflection off your retinas and back. So you'll see, I had somebody just try it. It's set individually to the person. So it knows how far their eyes are apart, like the shape of their eyes, all of that. So if you try and use your kids, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna know the difference in your eyes versus theirs, but you're gonna like look here and it's gonna go here. It also accounts for movement. So if their eyes do this and your eyes don't do this and you try and use it, it thinks you should be moving and you're holding still, so it moves. Because it's set and holds, the computer holds like what their settings are and continues it. It does not also need to be changed every time they use it. Calibration like should be set and stayed. I had a little girl who deleted her own calibration after 3 years. We did a new one and she was so mad because she knew she had to look just a little to the left or just a little to the right in certain places for 3 years. And then she was really angry at me. And I was like, it's not my fault. And so she's learned over the years, but I don't like to change. So it's just a little picture of what happens. Vision-wise, I have kids that move their heads a ton. We can set things really quick. It all depends. Or saw a little boy earlier, he kind of looks over here. And so I set the device over here because that's where my vision is. I don't care about it being straight on for like us, like we like things perfectly straight, but if I'm tilted, like I need to go with the kid versus with what I think looks pretty and perfect. Eye tracking in all conditions. So with uncontrolled head movements, I feel like people are like, well, they can't hold their head still. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't matter. Sometimes starting in a position that is their least amount of effort has to be used. So if sitting up in their chair is a lot of work and holding their head up, start flat on their bed, like come above them, like eliminate how much motoric movement they have to do to help them learn language and then build up from there. OTs also really love midline. That's not super functional for everybody. We can get there, maybe, depending on the kid, right? But don't force it to be so hard for me to get my body to look at this that now I have to learn language, and that's a lot altogether. Various positions. I have a lot of kids that use it flat on their back, on the floor, in bed, peapod chair, like all your equipment that y'all are used to. Glasses, absolutely. Outdoors in bright sunlight does work. Another question I get a lot, one eye or both eyes? It can do either. Sometimes we're like, well, this eye's stronger, I'm gonna set it to this eye. But some of our kids have learned if I look this way, I use this eye, and if I look this way, use this eye. Sometimes we have to go with that. So that's a little bit of trial and error. Which one's the best? Y'all know your kids best. We usually know the device is best, so it's kind of like brainstorm of like what makes the most sense. Low tech or switch with it as well. I tell a lot of schools, this is their voice to join in. This is not a testing tool. If you want to test, you need to come over here with some low tech stuff to test until they learn this is truly their voice and their language. Then you can do academics on it. But if I literally just everything you said to me, I tested you on, like, are you sure? Is that what you mean? Tell me this. You wouldn't talk to me. You'd shut down and you'd be out. So this is their voice to join into the activity. This is not the activity. So reminding with that's why I say low tech and high tech together. And then CBI, I know this is a question we get a lot, especially with brain injuries. We know you usually have vision. They just see usually differently than us. And they change over time, different levels, all of that. It's the processing, it's not the actual vision. So we don't know. So your biggest things you'll see, and you'll kind of see it here, and this is another page set of it. Spacing, when things are next to each other, the processing piece can't differentiate that as 2 buttons. It makes it 1. So they're like, okay, I'm looking at it, but it's all the same thing. So the thought process of 2 big buttons or 4 big buttons, to a lot of our kids, that looks like 1 big button. So the newer research is size is not as big. It's more of colors. So you see the high contrast. Some kids do well with the yellow. Some do great with black. You kind of have to try it. And then spacing. So if you'll notice, everybody's like, those are small buttons, but a lot of our kids, this is actually a whole lot easier than big buttons. And I have so much more to say on here when I can change pages and go to favorite things and stuff than if I give them 4 big buttons. I would probably shut down if you gave me 4 things to say and I didn't care about any of them. So kind of figuring that. Motor plan is also a big piece with CBI. So that means once you set it there and they start getting used to it, don't change it. Don't move it around. I've met some people that are like, oh, I want to make sure they really know what it means. Once again, not testing tool. If I change it and your kid has learned the 3rd one over and the 2nd one down gets me exactly what I want, and then I move it over here, they might not recognize that picture if they have a CVI and stuff, but they knew exactly where to go. So changing it is not going to be helpful for them. It should stay over time. even if you started with 4 buttons on this page and hid the rest, when I bring more back, everything is still in the exact same place. Also, always try. I think so many people are like, well, I was told my kid has a CVI, they can't use it. Maybe, but maybe not. Like, we don't know until we try it, and really trying it with somebody who knows what they're doing is really helpful. Because sometimes I've walked in and I'm like, is it the therapist doesn't really know what to do, or is it that the kid can't use it? And a lot of times it comes down to the therapist, and that's on them to learn and do more. Like, that's part of our licensure, is to be doing continuous education, to learn these things. And then we're here as consultants and other companies as well to help educate them and to teach them and show them. Access to language and access methods. I think this comes down to, okay, my kid can touch, but if he touches, he has 4 buttons because he really does this. So if I gave him an eye gaze or a switch or something else, could he have so much more language? Like, don't let the access to it impede on how much language they actually get. So I feel like sometimes that's a trade-off because it is a bulkier device when you go to eye gaze or switches and there's more to it, but could it give them more language? And maybe you could work towards touch and something simple over time too. I think, like, do they want to control their environment? What are we giving them for language too? We sometimes are like, oh, we want you to answer this way. And the kid goes to 6 different other pages and answers it in an appropriate way, but it's different than what we were thinking. So sometimes I think we stop them from going there. We're like, no, go back to this page or do this, because that's how we think. But, like, you got to give them a chance to explore it. Because I think about it, like, your kid probably looks at you and you know what he wants, but, like, how does he control his environment past that? Like, tell you to go away. Or I had a family years ago that they created a page that he could tell the siblings what to do. So, like, go dance, go run, go jump, and, like, he could be in charge. And it was one of the best things because he was like, oh, I finally get to, like, boss them around like they boss me around. So just remember some of that, like, to help get interest in it rather than, like, yes, no, good, go. Like, is that functional? Yes. Is that what they want to say to start? Probably not. Maybe go, or, like, go home, whatever. But then the question I get is, this is their voice, not ours. So everybody wants to put, like, toothbrushing in there. And I'm like, does your kid really care to ask you? Like, that's what you would say to them. Hey, it's time to go brush your teeth. Most kids, now there's a few, are like, I want to go brush my teeth. It's probably not what they would want on their device. So remember to split that apart. Same with, like, schools like to put, there's a good visual schedule piece to it, but, like, their classes of, like, what they're doing in the day. And I'm like, but that's what you're telling this kid. That's not what they're saying to you. So remembering the separation of that is really helpful for y'all. There's so much we can do and change and so many different levels of where we're at, especially after brain injury. Like, what does your kid need? Does your kid need words? Does your kid need symbols? Does your kid need both? High contrast symbols, all of that. Also, a question earlier, like, can we take pictures? Yes, you can absolutely take pictures, but remember what's going to be generalized and what's going to be not generalized. Like, your mom, I'm not going to put a random picture of mom, right? Like, you're not going to change. So that is more functional to put some pictures in, or if they only drink out of one specific cup, do that too. Like, but I've had a few parents that wanted to put a picture of every single, like, change everything to real pictures. Sometimes that can work depending on CVI stuff too, but that can be overwhelming because then it's not, like, generalized into real life after that. There's motor planning versus core first, which you'll kind of, one is that it's more of a loop system, and the other one is more like individually things stay on pages as I turn to it. Those are things that you can always look into more. Also, like, what are the kids saying these days? Apparently the new one is like, that's so Ohio, or 6-7. I don't understand what the 6-7 thing is.
I don't know. I asked an 8-year-old and they couldn't really explain it.
I don't think anybody actually knows what it is, but I think about, like, that should be in the kid's device too. I was telling somebody, like, I went to a school the other day and they were like, he's not using it. And I was like, okay, well, does he care? And there's an earthquake button on one of the sassy phrases, and I took his chair and I did this, and he could navigate 4 pages back to that earthquake button because he cared. So, like, academically, he didn't want to do anything they were teaching. But as soon as it made it interesting and, like, interacted with him, and sometimes that's the way, like, into it, and then you can go from there. Some of them, depending if you have, like, a gestalt language processing kid, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard that thrown around, how do we put their phrases in there that make sense to them, and, like, some of those things. just thinking about what's cool, and sometimes asking the kids in class like what's cool, or like other siblings and stuff. I don't know. I love, like, my favorite button is bugger off. Like, how many times a kid really wants to tell us to go away? Because I think about it, there's like 6 people in their space, all this stuff, like all the time. They probably don't get a lot of alone time. A lot of them really like to go to bye-bye real fast. Bye-bye. And I'm like, hi, and they're like, bye. But I will honor that and make it a game. I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna go, and I'll run out of the room. And then I come back and they're like, look at you, and they're like, bye-bye. And so like, it gives them the access to language, and they are controlling the environment. Okay, I tried to leave time for y'all's questions, experiences. Like, what have you had experienced with speech therapists, barriers, things like that? Does anybody have anything with like your own devices?
Not devices,
Yeah.
per se, but you did mention that the size. So with our speech therapist, my wife is the one that sits in a little more, but
Yeah.
I guess they suggested for her to use bigger posts or bigger flashcards.
Okay.
That the size is what I guess matters in that scenario. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, you mentioned that it doesn't necessarily.
That was a whole different therapy. It wasn't speech therapy, actually.
But I think sometimes that like it can apply to multiple things, right? So if you think about it, we want everybody thinks like bigger is better. Like there's a device that's a bigger screen and everybody's like, oh great. And I'm like, but that's more motor planning to get across. Like that's a lot more effort. So like, are they trying to learn to recognize items?
Yes, ma'am.
Then like maybe they need that because we're just working on like more vocabulary, but also like what would it look like differently if it was high contrast and like spread apart. So if you could, instead of holding them next to each other, could you hold them apart from each other to really differentiate that stuff?
He has like a really hard time with that. Even because he had a drowning accident last year, even before that, he was born hard of hearing, so he was
Okay.
in speech since little.
Okay.
And so they would try to get him to point at the different pictures. And I mean, in the real world, he knows what it is.
Yeah.
He just has no interest in pointing at the dog for you versus the cat. Like, and
Because he
then-
probably doesn't care.
So
Like,
now
I think it comes down to that.
Now in speech, you know, they brought up the AAC
Yeah.
device. We were very interested in him starting it, but he has no interest in it. So what do you suggest?
What does he care to
If
say?
I could add to that, because I have actually sat in there, and like you mentioned, it depends on the therapist. Because as I'm sitting in there, the therapist was actually having a hard time with the device itself.
Device, yeah.
So with that being said, it's
And then it also goes back to like if you're just like find the dog. I'm like go away. Like in his head. So
He wants to go play.
Yeah, where's the
So, like,
motivation? Can I
go
choose
play-
a specific
get your
toy or
cars,
bubbles or
yeah.
music? You know, finding those motivating
get the
activities.
cars and go down the ramp and be like ready, set, go, and model go. Like also the thing of how many times do we see like touch this, touch this, touch this? It's like no. Y'all have to show them what these are first, and that is a lot on y'all to start. Is showing them what these buttons mean. I showed a couple parents. I took all the words away. We're all reading it. Our kids mostly aren't reading it, so they're learning what these pictures are. So if I go into it and say, okay, find bugger off, and the word isn't there, you have to go through and hit things. So the more you can show them to connect those dots is the only way they can learn these languages. Sorry, y'all. That's how we're gonna do it. So like, is it being tested in therapy? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what does he want to do? How does he guide the therapy? And I'll go back to, this is not the activity. This is the voice to join into the activity. And I think sometimes, even as therapists, like you get stuck in that of like, I want, like, and it's how do you expand past that? Because we only say, I want, like 10% of our day. Like you really, like when you probably got your food, if he was grabbing something for you, you're like, oh, I want that. Or when you order your coffee, like past that, we comment, we chat, all of those other things, we don't request much. So labeling also is not language. I feel like that's the hard part. Like people are like, oh, I need you to label these things. And it's like, do you? Do you need me to label these things? Yeah, labeling. Labeling is not language. Labeling is labeling. You see that a lot with like ABA too. They're like, oh, I want you to like man for this. And I'm like, he wants to tell you to go away. End of story. And give him that language.
Does it count for nystagmus? Because we were told that that's the thing that is keeping us from. We've got a 16-year-old with hypoxic brain injury.
Okay.
And honestly, that's one thing that we're working on is controlled eye gaze. But we were told that that's our biggest barrier. And maybe it's just because your device is magic.
No,
But we have been told that that's our biggest barrier is that he can't hold
I think I say where or who, and some devices are better, like cameras are better than others. There's certain, right, like try different things. That's why I always say try multiple devices. If somebody's like, hey, this is the device you're gonna get, you say, hold on, I know there's other ones, whatever that is. Number two, like it's set to that. So if I'll show you after too, it's like if it moves 17 times, if his eyes move that, and this is gonna hold it.
But what if it, I mean, like, he doesn't always, like, sometimes he can, he can lock eyes with you and hold and, like, be fine. So will it accommodate that as well? So if there's not the nystagmus there, that it will, does that make sense?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. And you're gonna have to play with it.
Okay.
So like if you know your kid wakes up on a Tuesday and you can tell his eyes are like this, maybe you calibrate to that day. And the next day he can hold his eyes better. Maybe you, for your specific kid, like you do a calibration differently. And because like I had one lady that depending on her meds, her eyes were different. So she had to do a different calibration because she was like, I can use this perfectly today and then tomorrow with the same calibration, the same settings, I can't do it. And it was really a med change in it and how much it impacts her eyes. The other thing you can do is like, you don't have to hold it a whole second. Like I saw a kid the other day that like his head is going, but he like purposely has communication. It's set to 0.2, 0.3. So such a small time. And my thought is this, if some days his eyes are really bad, but like 4 days out of 7 of a week, could he have communication? Yeah. To me, that's better than nothing. Yeah. I've had a few people that like tone was just so bad on certain days that it didn't. Yes. And that's okay.
And that's, the weather changes and the weather.
Yes. And in a perfect world, I'd be like, oh, it's going to work all the time. Yes, exactly. Full moon, we all know. I worked in a peds clinic for a long time. I was like, full moon, scary.
Now, our speech therapists and our diagnosticians are amazing.
Yeah.
And so I know that they'll, that is our goal. But, we're doing switch and working on voice as well.
100%.
Because he's working on that motor plan. He's got voice and he's got mouth movement, just not together. Mm-hmm. And so we're working on that motor plan to put them together. And so, and he has yes and no's with his eyes. So, everything's there. And they're like, man, if we could just give him the ability to say what it is he wants to say. And there are days that we're like, hey, if you want us to just stop, we give him that option, but if we just gave him more
to say,
yes, the ability to tell us what he wants to say.
Yeah, which is hard. Like that's where I think there's that piece of like, there is like a sassy phrases page that you can say a lot of things that get your point across. And I love it. And it's always, honestly, it's a go-to for a lot of kids. But my thing, like you're telling me he has a yes and no with his eyes, which to me means he probably has enough control of his eyes to do. Does that like, my kids that like really can't, like I've met a couple, not a ton, but a couple that like, we're not even attending to a screen. We have no functional yes and no with our eyes. Like that's a lot of control actually. Okay. So I would come see me after and I'll help you figure out who your consultant is in your area, and maybe like sometimes we know the devices and the settings enough and your therapist and you know your kid enough, we can kind of put it all together to try that stuff.
I recommend like a 30-day trial just to see.
Yep.
Good days, bad days, we can do 30 days just to see if it's an option. So.
And the 30-day trial, just for everybody, you do not have to perfect it. Like there's no test to this. It's like, hey, am I like attending to this and like activating it and trying to say some stuff? That's what they're looking for. They're not looking for, he can tell us 27 things. Like that's not, so don't get that in your head either. Yeah. So there's that.
Have enough control and
just intentionally, exactly.
And sometimes I'll look for a kid to like make a selection of some sort on here and then look at me to know like cause and effect. Like I said something, did you get that? Like not even if it's the right thing, because it's a lot to learn. Like if I have you try and figure this all out, you're like, what am I saying? But remember, there's a lot of other factors in there. Is that helpful? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? We're almost at time anyways.
So do the insurance cover this? How do you get access to this?
Okay, you live in Texas, so I can answer your questions. It depends on the state. So here in Texas, like Medicaid, like a lot of our kids have secondary Medicaids and stuff, they require a 30-day trial. Some insurances require it, but then they do pay in full. It does have to be written by a speech pathologist, and they do have to usually do that trial data and write a report, but most insurances cover devices. A lot of states have alternate funding programs. It just depends. Like California, like there's certain med things that are, most of it is covered from what I've talked to the California girls about, but I don't want to like promise anything. But also that is where if an evaluation is done and it is shown that like eye gaze or switch or a device is needed, the school also has to legally provide that. Fun facts.
Can you repeat what you said?
She's like, let me write that down. So like in a,
Covers, for the most part, 30-day trial.
yep,
But it has to be, I guess, submitted by a speech.
yeah.
How would they?
They do it all, like we help them with all the whole process. So like there's a whole report they write on our online system for our specific company. And then most of the other companies that are like doing eye gaze and stuff do the same thing. And so then we have a funding team that works with the therapist to like fix it, this, and this, and then we submit to insurance. Yeah, yep, and I can give you the San Antonio girl's information. She's great, yeah. I only go to like Kyle, I don't go all the way, so, yeah. But sometimes I feel like a therapist, I think about like, we see the tough kids all the time. Your therapist probably sees like 1 or 2 plus the Arctic kids and this and that. So sometimes it's like, okay, let me help you like get here. And they're like, oh, I can do that. But you gotta show them what you can do.
What did you say again about like if your child is supposed to be using the AAC device, the school, what?
So if your kid does not speak naturally and an evaluation is done to help them, remember the communication bill of rights I had in the front? Okay, so like a yes/no board doesn't count. They have to provide like low tech kind, like if you can prove a high tech is necessary, they also have to provide that. A lot of schools don't always have the funds, so they need to be able to help you outside of it. So I have some kids at Austin ISD that don't have outside speech therapy, and so the AT people and the speech therapists at the school actually have written the full report to get them their device through their insurance as well.
Do you know, like just out of curiosity, do you know if that applies to homeschool?
I don't know. I don't think no, because
No, because when you go into the school, there's something called the IEP program.
yeah.
So that's where all of these accommodations will fall. Homeschool also has IEP. Oh, yes, at least in California.
I don't that is not a question I have any information on.
Necessary accommodation.
Yeah.
I didn't know over there it fell under.
Yeah.
Yeah, homeschools in California do have.
That's awesome.
IEPs.
That's what it should be.
Now, question, ma'am.
Yeah.
So through homeschool, that's his, I guess, speech therapist.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, she did ask for us to get one of those PECS books. Can they stand on? You have this. We don't necessarily need to provide this.
You have the PECS, but.
If you can prove the high tech is needed. So like PECS is dependent on y'all.
Yeah.
High tech is not dependent on y'all.
Okay.
So just remember that. I don't know. That's not an answer I know exactly to. So old school speech was you had to prove you could use PECS before you could get a high tech device. All your new research is not, because you can do basically a PECS system, like there's stages of PECS, and you can do that with a high tech device. But with PECS, it depends on your voice of like, oh, you want, like if he hands you the Oreo, like, oh, you want the Oreo, versus with a high tech, he can hit it and it's his voice.
Yes. Okay.
The separation, which a lot of kids do better with. Is that helpful? Okay. Anybody else, question-wise? Okay, then that's it. Thank y'all for coming. Of course. Oh, I did put my information here if anybody wants it. I can also get you your rep if you come see me at my table.
I just thought you're with Tobii Dynavox, right?
Yes, sorry, I did that at the beginning. Y'all weren't, yes. Yes, I work for Tobii Dynavox. I'm originally a speech therapy assistant. My mom's a PT. I did all that stuff, and now I do this side of it. But I love our products, but that's not right for everybody, and that's okay.
My daughter has a Forbes,
Okay.
and she's using the switches. She's very limited in her physical
Okay.
ability. They told us that she wasn't eligible for eye gaze.
Through Forbes or through the speech therapist?
The speech therapist.
Did you have anybody but Forbes come in and try things?
Yeah. So
Okay.
we had a whole, the speech therapist that she has now used to do consultations and match kids with what she thought would be the most appropriate
Okay.
device for them. And so she's doing great with
Okay.
Forbes. But
Okay.
we've been through a lot of selfies.
Yeah, I was like, that's usually what I hear.
Yeah, and there's I feel like the one common thread is those who don't assume competence versus the very few who can. You obviously can with everything you're talking about, but
Yeah, that's like the number one rule of AAC is assuming confidence. Because here's the thing, if I questioned everything you said to me, or if I stood up here and you questioned everything, I wouldn't want to talk to you.
the thing that I always come back to, which doesn't resonate with the 22-year-old SLPs, I'll tell you that, is I'm like, my daughter's 10. There's no possible way. She's non-speaking. She's immobile. She's spastic quad head to toe.
Yeah.
I could not take care of her. I could not keep her alive if she was not communicating. So, but that goes in one ear and right out the other. And I'm like, I don't know what else.
Yeah. But switches, so is she successful with the switches? Okay,
Yeah,
but
it's a little dependent on the day.
yeah, well, yeah,
I'm a moody girl, but
aren't we all?
yeah, but she can.
Takes the cake.
She can. She surely can.
It,
But
and you've never been able to try eye gaze?
we did
Okay.
do a 30-day trial,
Okay.
but we were not with the right SLP.
Okay.
We did not make any movement.
How old is her device?
It's relatively new. She
Okay.
got it in 2022,
Okay, and what state do you live in?
Florida.
I don't know about their alternate funding, but you can always trial again with the correct kind of, maybe if you have a good team. You can reapply for a device for a change in like access. And like here we have alternate funding, so we can go through other things to get different funding. I don't know what Florida has, but I can always like, thank you.
The program that she uses now is called TD Snap. I'm sure you know.
So we own that, and we technically are the only ones that should be selling that. Fun facts. There's my politically correct fun facts. Yes. So just so you know, so like that is, so TD is Tobii Dynavox. Snap. So Tobii Dynavox. So it's all of our research, so we have an entire team of speech paths that do all your research and develop it and continue, yes. So TD Snap is Tobii Dynavox. Yes, so even if you did eye gaze with Tobii Dynavox, or if that's what she's using, that's probably what I would stick with, because she's used to those symbols and things. It would be the same software. So like this is all TD Snap. I just have this set for CBI.
I see.
Yeah, they're just different page sets. Yeah, does that answer your questions? Okay, and if you want like your consultant's information, okay.